The dust swirled in lazy circles outside the weathered saloon, carrying with it the scent of sage and sun-baked earth. Eliza Mayfield pressed herself against the shadow of a wooden awning, her threadbare calico dress clinging to her frame as the Arizona heat bore down mercilessly. She'd been walking since dawn, her worn boots testament to the miles between her and the last town that had turned her away. Willow Creek wasn't much to look at, a collection of ramshackle buildings huddled together like old men sharing secrets. But it had what she needed, a general store with a "Help Wanted" sign propped in the window. After 3 weeks of searching, sleeping in barns and washing in creeks, this might be her chance. The bell above the door jangled as she entered, drawing the attention of several men lounging near the counter. Their conversation died, replaced by appraising stares that made her skin crawl. Behind the counter stood a heavy-set man with greasy hair and a stained apron, presumably Mr. Garrett, the proprietor. "Can I help you?" His tone suggested he'd rather not. Eliza lifted her chin, trying to project confidence she didn't feel. "I'm here about the position. Sir, I can read, write, and cipher. I've worked in shops before." Garrett's laugh was harsh. "That's so, and where might these shops be?" "Back in Missouri. Before—" She caught herself. Before her parents died of fever. Before the bank took the farm. Before she'd become another nameless orphan drifting west. Before I came out here. "Missouri." He said it like it was a foreign country. "And you traveled all this way alone?" The other men had drawn closer, forming a loose semicircle. One of them, a scrawny fellow with tobacco-stained teeth, snickered. "Ain't no decent woman travels alone." "Garrett, you know what they say about girls like that." Heat flooded Eliza's cheeks. "I'm perfectly decent, sir. I just need honest work." "Honest?" Garrett's eyebrows rose mockingly. "Girl shows up with no family, no husband, no references, claiming to be honest. More likely you're running from something, or someone." "That's not true." The words came out sharper than intended, desperation bleeding through. "Please, I just need a chance." "We don't need your kind here." Garrett's voice had turned cold. "Willow Creek's a respectable town. We got wives and daughters to think about. Don't need some prairie rose bringing trouble to our doorstep." The slur hit her like a physical blow. Prairie Rose, a polite way of calling her something much worse. Tears pricked at her eyes, but she fought them back. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction. I'm not what you're implying." Her voice cracked. "I'm just trying to survive." "Survive somewhere else," Garrett said, already turning away. "Now get out before I have the marshal escort you to the town limits." The men laughed, cruel and dismissive. One made a crude gesture. Another whispered something that made his companions guffaw. Eliza stood frozen, humiliation washing over her in waves. This was the third town, the third rejection. How many more could she take? "I said get out." Garrett's hand slammed the counter. The tears came then, hot and shameful. She turned to flee, but found her path blocked by the leering men. They didn't touch her, they didn't need to. Their presence alone was threat enough. "Please," she whispered, hating how small her voice sounded. "Let me pass." "Oh, she's crying," the tobacco-stained man mocked. "Poor little thing. Maybe if you were prettier, Garrett might have given you a chance. But looking like that—" He shook his head in false sympathy. "Plain as a fence post, ain't she?" The words tumbled out before she could stop them. Raw and honest. "I know I'm not pretty. I'm not worth anything to anyone. I just wanted to work. That's all." Her confession seemed to delight them. More laughter erupted, harsh and grating. Someone suggested she try the saloon down the street. They ain't so picky about looks there, long as you're willing. That's when the door opened. The laughter died instantly. Eliza couldn't see who had entered, but she felt the shift in the room's atmosphere. The men who'd been crowding her suddenly found reasons to step back. "Problem here. Garrett." The voice was deep, controlled, with an edge that suggested violence held carefully in check. Eliza turned and saw him tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that needed cutting and clothes that marked him as someone who spent more time on the trail than in town. A Colt .45 rode low on his hip, worn but well-maintained. Garrett's demeanor changed completely. "No problem. Cole, just explaining to this young woman that we don't have any positions available." "That what you were doing?" Cole's gray eyes took in the scene, Eliza's tears, the men's positions, the cruel amusement still lingering on their faces. Looked different from where I was standing. "Now, Cole," the tobacco-stained man started. "Shut your mouth, Morrison, before I shut it for you." Cole didn't even look at him. His attention remained fixed on Garrett. "The lady asked for work. That crime in Willow Creek now." "She's no lady," Garrett protested. "Shows up alone, no family, no—" "So," Cole stepped further into the store, and the men scattered like quail. "Plenty of folks come west alone. Doesn't make them criminals or worse." Eliza found herself staring at this unexpected defender. Up close, she could see the weathered lines around his eyes, the scar that ran along his jaw, the way he held himself ready for trouble but hoping to avoid it. "This ain't your concern, Cole," Garrett said, but his voice had lost its earlier authority. "I'm making it my concern." Cole's hand didn't move toward his gun. Didn't need to. The threat was implicit in his stance, his reputation doing the work for him. "The lady's leaving, with me. Anyone has a problem with that." Silence. Cole finally looked at Eliza. "Ma'am, if you'd come with me." She nodded, not trusting her voice. He stepped aside, creating a clear path to the door. As she passed him, she caught the scent of leather and trail dust, honest smells that somehow made her feel safer. Outside, the sun hit her like a hammer. She stumbled, overwhelmed by heat and emotion. A strong hand caught her elbow, steadying her. "Easy there." Cole guided her to the shade of the building. "When's the last time you ate?" The question was so practical, so unexpected, that fresh tears threatened. "Yesterday, maybe the day before. I'm not sure." He studied her with those storm-gray eyes. Taking in details, she wished he wouldn't notice the frayed hem of her dress, the dust caking her boots, the way her hands shook. "There's a decent boarding house on the other end of town. Mrs. Chen runs it. She'll give you a meal and a bed for the night." "I can't." The admission burned. I spent my last coin getting here." Something shifted in his expression. Not pity, she couldn't have borne that, but understanding. "Wait here." He disappeared back into the store. Raised voices filtered through the door, Garrett's protests meeting Cole's implacable responses. A few minutes later, Cole emerged carrying a small sack. "Provisions," he said simply, pressing it into her hands. "Garrett owed me anyway." "I can't accept—" "You can and you will." His tone brooked no argument. "Pride's a luxury you can't afford right now." She looked down at the sack crackers, dried beef, even a small pot of jam. Her stomach cramped with hunger, but stronger than that was the shame. "Why are you helping me?" "Maybe because I know what it's like to be alone and desperate." He adjusted his hat against the sun. "Maybe because I'm tired of men like Garrett thinking they own this town. Does it matter?" "I suppose not." She clutched the provisions like a lifeline. "Thank you, Mr. Jackson, Cole Jackson." He touched the brim of his hat. "And you, Eliza Mayfield." "Well, Miss Mayfield, you can't stay in Willow Creek. Garrett will make your life miserable. And he's got friends." "I know." The words came out defeated. "I'll move on tomorrow. Find another town." "Another town will likely be the same. Maybe worse." He seemed to wrestle with something, then said, "I've got a proposition for you. Hear me out before you answer." Wariness crept in. She'd heard propositions before, each one worse than the last. What kind of proposition? I've got a ranch about 10 miles north. Nothing fancy, just a house and some outbuildings. My kid sister lives with me. She's 10, smart as a whip, but she needs schooling. Someone to help with the house, too. I can't pay much, but you'd have room and board, and nobody'd bother you. Eliza stared at him, searching for the catch. Why would you trust me? You don't know anything about me. I know Garrett doesn't like you, which speaks in your favor. I know you're brave enough to walk into that store alone. And I know you're honest. You could have made up a dozen stories about why you're here. But you didn't. He shrugged. That's enough for now. Your sister, she lives with you. Since our mother passed 2 years back. Emma's her name. Fair warning, she's got opinions on everything and isn't shy about sharing them. Despite everything, Eliza found herself almost smiling. And you trust me with her. I trust my instincts. Been keeping me alive for 30-odd years. He glanced at the sun. I need to head back soon. If you're coming, we should go. It was madness, following a stranger into the wilderness based on nothing but a kind gesture and a promise of work. But what was the alternative? Another town, another Garrett, another humiliation. All right, she heard herself say. I'll come. Something flickered in his eyes, surprise relief. It was gone too quickly to tell. My wagon's at the livery. Can you walk that far? She nodded, though her legs felt like water. As they made their way down the dusty street, she caught the stares from windows and doorways. By nightfall, the whole town would know that Cole Jackson had taken in the strange girl. The whispers would start, the speculation. But for now, walking beside this taciturn stranger who defended her when he didn't have to, Eliza felt something she hadn't experienced in weeks, hope. The livery stable smelled of hay and horses. Cole's wagon was practical, built for work rather than comfort. He helped her up the first time anyone had touched her with courtesy and longer than she cared to remember, then swung up beside her with easy grace. As they rolled out of Willow Creek, Eliza took one last look at the town that had rejected her. Garrett stood in his doorway, scowling. Morrison spat tobacco juice in their direction. Other faces peered from windows, curious and judgmental. Don't look back, Cole advised quietly. Nothing there worth seeing. She faced forward, toward the unknown trail ahead. The sun was brutal, the wagon seat hard, and she had no idea what she was riding toward. But it had to be better than what she was leaving behind. Mr. Jackson, she said after they'd left the last building behind. Cole, he corrected. We're not formal at the ranch. Cole. The name felt strange on her tongue. What you did back there, standing up to them, thank you. He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, my mother used to say that the measure of a man isn't in how he treats his equals, but how he treats those who can't fight back. Garrett forgot that lesson. Seems like most of Willow Creek has. Still, you didn't have to. Yes, he said firmly. I did. They rode in silence after that, but it was a comfortable silence. The desert stretched endlessly before them, painted in shades of red and gold. Somewhere out there was a ranch, a little girl named Emma, and a chance at something better. For the first time since her parents died, Eliza Mayfield allowed herself to believe she might survive after all. The ranch appeared like a mirage after 2 hours of bone-jarring travel across the desert. It wasn't much a modest adobe house with a tin roof, a barn that had seen better days, and a scattering of outbuildings, but to Eliza's travel-weary eyes, it looked like salvation. Home, Cole said simply, pulling the wagon to a stop near the house. Before Eliza could respond, the front door burst open and a whirlwind of calico and braids came flying down the steps. Cole, you're back. Did you get the supplies? Whose this is she staying? The girl skidded to a stop beside the wagon, dust billowing around her bare feet. She had Cole's dark hair, but none of his reserve. Her face animated with curiosity as she studied Eliza with bright hazel eyes. "Emma," Cole said, his voice carrying both affection and mild reproof. "Where are your shoes?" "In the house. They pinch." Emma's attention never wavered from Eliza. "Are you the new school teacher Cole said he might find one in town?" "This is Miss Mayfield," Cole said, climbing down from the wagon. "She'll be staying with us for a while, helping with your lessons and the house. Eliza, this is my sister Emma." "Pleased to meet you, Emma." Eliza accepted Cole's help down, her legs shaky after the long ride. Emma circled her like a curious cat. "You're pretty, not like Mrs. Henderson from church. She says she's pretty, but she looks like a dried apple. You look tired, though, and hungry. Are you hungry? I made biscuits, but they're a little burnt on the bottom because I was reading and forgot about them." "Emma!" Cole's tone held a warning. "Let Miss Mayfield catch her breath." "It's all right." Eliza found herself smiling despite her exhaustion. "And yes, I am hungry. Even burnt biscuits sound wonderful." Emma beamed. "I like her. Cole, she's not all stuffy like the last governess you talked to." She grabbed Eliza's hand. "Come on, I'll show you the house. Your room is next to mine. It was Mama's sewing room, but Cole fixed it up nice. There's a real bed and everything." Eliza allowed herself to be pulled along, glancing back at Cole, who was unloading the wagon. He caught her look and shrugged, the ghost of a smile playing at his lips. The house was larger inside than it appeared, with thick adobe walls that kept the worst of the heat at bay. The main room served as kitchen and living space, with a large table, mismatched chairs, and a stone fireplace. Everything was clean, but had the slightly disheveled air of a household run by a bachelor and a child. "This is where we eat," Emma announced, gesturing grandly. "And that's where Cole does his accounts and I do my lessons. He makes me practice my letters every day, but my handwriting's still awful. Maybe you can help. The last teacher said I held the pen like I was strangling a chicken." "I'm sure we can work on that." Eliza took in the details: the rifle mounted over the fireplace, the shelf of well-worn books, a sampler on the wall with crooked stitching that must have been Emma's work. "Your room's this way." Emma led her down a short hallway. "That's Cole's room, that's mine, and this is yours." The room was small but clean, with a narrow bed, a washstand, and a chest of drawers. A faded quilt covered the bed, and someone had placed a jar of wildflowers on the windowsill. After weeks of sleeping in barns and under stars, it looked like paradise. "I picked the flowers," Emma said proudly. "Cole said you might like them. He also said I shouldn't bother you too much and let you settle in. But I have about 100 questions. Is that bothering you?" "Not at all." Eliza sat on the bed, testing its softness. "What would you like to know?" Emma plopped down beside her. "Everything. Where are you from? Why were you in Willow Creek? Do you know any stories? Can you braid hair? Mine always comes out crooked when I do it myself." "Emma." Cole appeared in the doorway, arms full of supplies. "What did I say about letting Miss Mayfield rest?" "I'm resting her by talking to her." Emma protested. "That's restful, right?" Eliza surprised herself by laughing. "It's fine. Truly, I've missed having someone to talk to." Cole studied her for a moment, then nodded. "I'll put these supplies away. Emma, show Miss Mayfield where the wash basin is and get her some water. Supper's at sunset." After he left, Emma leaned in conspiratorially. "He seems gruff, but he's really not. He just forgets how to talk to people sometimes. Mama used to say he was born serious and never got over it." "He seems kind," Eliza said, remembering his intervention at the store. "He is the kindest, even when he has to be tough." Emma's young face took on an unexpectedly solemn expression. "He saved me, you know, When Mama died, and Uncle Theodore wanted to take me back east to put me in a proper school for young ladies. She made a face. Cole told him no. Uncle Theodore said a bachelor had no business raising a little girl. But Cole wouldn't budge. They had a terrible fight about it. "You're lucky to have him." "I know." Emma bounced back to cheerfulness. "And now we have you. It'll be nice having another woman around." Cole tries, but he doesn't understand about things like hair ribbons and why I need more than 2 dresses. Over the next hour, Emma gave Eliza the grand tour, the kitchen garden struggling in the desert soil, the chicken coop with its temperamental residents, the barn where Cole's horses stayed. She chattered constantly, a running commentary on everything from the personality quirks of each chicken to the proper way to avoid rattlesnakes. By the time the sun began its descent, painting the desert in shades of amber and rose, Eliza felt both overwhelmed and oddly at peace. She helped Emma set the table while Cole finished the evening chores, moving around the kitchen with growing confidence. Supper was simple beans, salt pork, the promised biscuits indeed burnt on the bottom, and preserved peaches for dessert. But after days of sporadic meals, it tasted like a feast. "So, Miss Mayfield," Cole said as they ate, "Emma tells me you can read and write. Any other skills I should know about?" "I can cipher. As I mentioned, my mother taught school before she married, so I learned from her. I can sew, though I'm better at practical things than fancy work. I know a bit about herbs and healing. My father was often sick, so I learned to help tend him." "Can you shoot?" Emma asked eagerly. "Emma," Cole warned. "What? It's important out here? Remember when that coyote came after the chickens?" "I've never handled a firearm," Eliza admitted. "There was never a need back home." "There's a need here," Cole said quietly. "If you're staying, you'll learn, for safety." The implications of that statement settled over the table. This wasn't Missouri, with its established towns and nearby neighbors. This was the frontier, where danger could come in many forms. "I'll teach you," Emma volunteered. "I'm a good shot. Cole taught me." "We'll see," Cole said, which Emma seemed to take as agreement. After supper, Eliza insisted on cleaning up despite Cole's protests that she should rest. She needed to feel useful, to start earning her keep. Emma dried dishes while regaling her with tales of local wildlife, bandits who'd passed through last spring, and the time Cole had faced down 3 men who tried to steal their horses. "You make him sound like some kind of hero," Eliza said, smiling as she scrubbed a pot. "He doesn't like when I tell that story," Emma admitted. "But it's true. They thought because he was just one man they could take what they wanted. They learned different." Later, after Emma had been sent to bed under protest, Eliza found Cole on the porch, smoking a pipe and watching the stars emerge. She hesitated, then joined him, settling into the empty rocking chair. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything today, for taking a chance on me." He was quiet for a moment, the glow of his pipe the only light besides the stars. "Emma likes you. That's rare. She's particular about people. She's wonderful, so bright and full of life. She's had to grow up fast. This isn't an easy life for a child." He paused. "It won't be easy for you either. We're 10 miles from town, twice that from any neighbors. It gets lonely. In winter, we might be cut off for weeks if the storms are bad. And there's always the chance of trouble raiders, renegade Apache, men who think because we're isolated they can take liberties." "You're trying to scare me off." "I'm trying to be honest. You deserve to know what you're signing up for." Eliza considered his words. "You know what scared me more than any of that? Another night sleeping in the open, wondering if I'd wake up. Another town where I'm nobody, worth nothing. Another man like Garrett looking at me like I'm dirt." Her voice grew stronger. "I'll take isolation over that. I'll learn to shoot, to ride, whatever's needed. Just give me a chance to prove I'm worth keeping around." "You don't have to prove anything," Cole said gruffly. "Job's yours as long as you want it." They sat in comfortable silence, the desert night alive with the sounds of crickets and distant coyotes. Inside the house, Eliza could hear Emma moving around, probably reading by candlelight despite being told to sleep. "Can I ask you something?" Eliza ventured. Cole nodded. "Why did you really help me today, the truth this time?" He took a long draw on his pipe before answering. "My mother came west alone once, 20 years old. No family, just grit and hope. She worked in a boarding house in Tucson, saved every penny. That's where she met my father. But she told me stories about those first months, how men treated her, the assumptions they made. She said the hardest part wasn't the work or the loneliness. It was keeping faith in herself when the whole world seemed determined to tear her down." "She sounds like a strong woman." "She was strongest I've known." He tapped his pipe against the porch rail. "When I saw you in that store, facing down Garrett and his cronies, trying to maintain your dignity while they mocked you, I saw her, couldn't walk away." "I'm glad you didn't," Eliza said softly. "So am I." The admission hung between them, more intimate than intended. Cole cleared his throat and stood. "Early mornings here. Dawn comes quick and there's always work waiting." "Of course. Good night, Mr. Jackson." "Cole," he reminded her. "We're not formal here. Remember? Good night, Cole." He touched the brim of his hat and disappeared into the house. Eliza remained on the porch a while longer, letting the peace of the night settle into her bones. For the first time in months, she wasn't planning tomorrow's survival. She was just here, present, safe. When she finally made her way to her room, she found Emma had left a note on her pillow in careful, crooked handwriting. "I'm glad you're here. Sweet dreams. E." Eliza pressed the note to her chest and cried, not from sadness this time, but from relief. She'd found something she'd almost stopped believing in a place where she might belong. As she prepared for bed, washing her face with the clean water Emma had left, changing into the spare nightgown she found in the drawer, Eliza caught her reflection in the small mirror. Plain. Garrett's men had said, not pretty. But Cole had seen something else, something worth defending, worth taking home. Maybe in time, she could see it too. The desert wind whispered around the house, carrying the scent of sage and possibilities. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, learning Emma's routines, finding her place in this small household, proving she could handle the harsh realities of ranch life. But tonight, for the first time in longer than she cared to remember, Eliza Mayfield fell asleep without fear. 3 weeks had passed since Eliza arrived at the Jackson Ranch, and the rhythm of her new life had begun to feel almost natural. She woke before dawn to start the fire, prepared breakfast while Cole tended the animals, and spent mornings teaching Emma lessons at the big kitchen table. The afternoons were for chores mending, washing, tending the struggling garden, and evenings brought them all together again for supper and quiet conversation. It was during one of these peaceful mornings that the past caught up with them. Emma was practicing her penmanship, tongue poking out in concentration. When the sound of approaching horses made Cole look up from his coffee, he moved to the window with the controlled alertness Eliza had come to recognize, not panic, but readiness. "Stay inside," he said quietly, checking the load on his rifle. Through the window, Eliza could see 4 riders approaching. Even from a distance, she recognized the lead man's bulk and aggressive posture, Reeves Buchanan. She'd heard his name whispered in town, always accompanied by nervous glances and quick changes of subject. "Emma, take your slate to your room," Eliza said, trying to keep her voice calm. "But I want to see—" "Now, Emma." The girl must have heard something in Eliza's tone because she gathered her things without further protest, though she paused at the hallway to peek back. Cole stepped onto the porch, rifle held casually but ready. Eliza watched through the window as the riders pulled up just outside what she'd learned was considered polite distance, close enough to talk, far enough to show they weren't immediately threatening. "Morning, Jackson," Buchanan called out. His voice carried through the thin walls, oily and false-friendly. "Fine day, isn't it?" "State your business. Buchanan." "Now, is that any way to greet a neighbor? I'm hurt." Buchanan shifted in his saddle, leather creaking. "Just thought I'd come by. See how you're settling in with your new arrangement." "What arrangement would that be?" "Why, your house guest, of course. News travels fast in these parts. Heard you picked up a stray in town. That was real charitable of you, taking in a girl like that." Eliza's hands clenched at her sides. A girl like that. The words dripped with insinuation. "Miss Mayfield is my sister's governess," Cole said evenly. "Properly employed and under my protection." "Governess." Buchanan tested the word like he was tasting something sour. "That what they're calling it these days? Well, I suppose a man gets lonely out here. Can't say I blame you for wanting some comfort." "Choose your next words carefully, Buchanan." The threat in Cole's voice was unmistakable. One of Buchanan's men shifted nervously, hand drifting toward his sidearm. "Easy there, Jackson. No call for unpleasantness." Buchanan's smile was visible even from the window. "I'm just being neighborly. In fact, I came to make you an offer." "Not interested." "You haven't heard it yet. See, I've been thinking about that water rights claim you filed on Sweetwater Creek. Seems a shame for neighbors to squabble over such things. I'd be willing to take it off your hands for a fair price." "I said not interested. Now, don't be hasty. A man in your position, young girl to raise. New mouth to feed could use the money. Times are hard. Getting harder. My position is just fine." Buchanan's friendly mask slipped. "Is it because from where I sit, you're looking vulnerable? Jackson, man alone with a child and a woman of questionable reputation." The rifle barrel swung up so fast Eliza barely saw the movement. "That's enough. Get off my land." "No need for guns," Buchanan said. But his men had tensed, ready for violence. "I'm trying to help you here. That creek water's going to be contested come drought season. You know it. I know it. Why not avoid the unpleasantness?" "Because it's not yours. Never will be." "We'll see about that." Buchanan gathered his reins. "You know, Jackson, pride's a dangerous thing out here. Makes a man blind to reality. That ranch is too much for one man. That sister of yours needs proper society, proper schooling, and that woman—" He shook his head. "Well, we all know what kind of woman travels alone. Takes up with the first man who'll have her." Eliza bit her lip hard enough to taste blood. Through the doorway, she saw Cole's finger move to the trigger. "5 seconds to clear my property," Cole said. 4. "Think about my offer." Buchanan called out, already turning his horse. "Think real hard. I'd hate for anything unfortunate to happen. Accidents occur so easily out here. Fires start. Stock goes missing. Women and children find themselves in difficult situations." 3. The riders wheeled and galloped off, dust billowing in their wake. Cole remained on the porch, watching until they disappeared over a rise. Only then did he lower the rifle and come inside. His eyes found Eliza immediately. "You all right?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. "Emma," Cole called. "You can come out now." Emma appeared instantly, clearly having listened to everything. "I don't like Mr. Buchanan. He smells like sour milk and meanness." "Stay away from him and his men," Cole said firmly. "If you see them coming, you get inside and bar the door. Understand?" "Yes, Cole." Emma's usual brightness dimmed. "Is he going to cause trouble?" "Nothing I can't handle." Cole set the rifle back in its place. "Why don't you go gather the eggs? Take your time." After Emma left, casting worried glances back, Cole turned to Eliza. "I should have warned you about Buchanan. He's been trying to expand his holdings, buying out or forcing out smaller ranchers. That water claim he mentioned, it's the key to this whole area. Without it, his grand plans dry up." "He threatened Emma. Threatened me." Eliza was surprised by the anger in her voice. What kind of man? The kind who usually gets what he wants. Cole ran a hand through his hair. I'm sorry. When I brought you here, I didn't think. I should have considered how it would look, how men like Buchanan would use it. Use what? The words came out sharp. The fact that you gave me honest work, that you treated me with basic decency. The fact that you're here, unmarried, under my roof. I know it's innocent, but nothing. Eliza surprised herself with her vehemence. I've been called names my whole life. Poor orphan girl, plain girl, worthless girl. Now they want to call me something worse. Let 'em. I know what I am. And what's that? She met his eyes squarely. Someone who works hard. Someone who's making Emma smile again after losing her mother. Someone who's earning her keep honestly. If that's not enough for men like Buchanan, that's their failing, not mine. Something shifted in Cole's expression, surprise, perhaps, or admiration. You're tougher than you look. Miss Mayfield. Eliza, she corrected. We're not formal here, remember? That earned her almost a smile. Eliza, then, and you're right. Buchanan's opinion matters less than nothing. But his threats. You think he meant them? I think Reeves Buchanan is a man who's never heard no without making someone pay for it. Cole moved to the stove, pouring fresh coffee. I'll need to be more careful. Maybe teach you to shoot sooner than planned. This afternoon, Eliza said firmly. If trouble's coming, I want to be ready. He studied her over the rim of his cup. You've changed since that day in town. Have I? She considered this. Or maybe I'm just finding who I always was, underneath the fear. That afternoon, true to his word, Cole set up targets behind the barn. Emma appointed herself assistant instructor, offering enthusiastic, if not always helpful advice. You're strangling it, Emma announced as Eliza gripped the old Colt revolver. Hold it like you're holding a bird, firm but gentle. How many birds have you held? Cole asked dryly. That's not the point. Cole stepped behind Eliza, adjusting her stance. Feet wider, that's it. Now, the gun's going to kick when you fire. Don't fight it, ride it out. His hands covered hers, steadying her grip. Eliza tried not to notice how careful he was to maintain proper distance, how his voice dropped to that patient teaching tone she'd heard him use with Emma. Front sight on the target. Let out your breath slowly. Squeeze. Don't jerk. The gun boomed, making her ears ring. The tin can target remained untouched, mocking her from its fence post perch. Not bad for a first shot, Cole said. I missed completely. You didn't shoot yourself or me. That's a good start. Emma giggled. My first shot. I nearly took out the chicken coop. They practiced until Eliza's arms ached and she'd actually hit 2 of the 6 targets. As the sun began its descent, painting the desert in familiar golds and reds, she helped Emma carry the targets back to the barn. You did good, Emma said. Cole doesn't say much, but I could tell he was impressed. By my missing? By your trying. By not giving up even when your arms got tired. Emma's young face turned serious. He worries, you know, about keeping us safe. It'll help him, knowing you can defend yourself if needed. That evening, as had become their custom, Eliza found herself on the porch with Cole after Emma's bedtime. The night was cooler than usual, autumn asserting itself in the desert. Thank you for the lesson, she said. I know you have better things to do than teach a novice to shoot. Keeping the people under my roof safe is the best thing I can do. He paused. I've been thinking about Buchanan's visit. Maybe I should take you to town. Let you stay at Mrs. Chen's boarding house for a while, until this blows over. No, the word came out forcefully. This is my home now. I won't be driven off by threats and ugly words. It could get worse than words. Then I'll face that too. She turned to look at him in the dim light. Unless you want me to go. No, His response was equally quick. "No, I don't want that." They sat in silence, but it was charged now with something new. An awareness that had been growing for weeks, carefully ignored but increasingly impossible to deny. "Cole," she began, then stopped, uncertain. "I know," he said quietly. "But we can't. Your reputation is already ruined, according to Buchanan. According to Buchanan, you're—" He cut himself off. "It doesn't matter what he thinks, but it matters what's right. You work for me. You're under my protection. I won't take advantage of that." What if it's not taking advantage? What if it's just recognizing what's already there? He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. "Then, my mother used to say that the desert strips everything down to its essence. No pretense, no hiding, just truth, bare as the rocks." He stood abruptly. "It's late. Tomorrow's wash day, Em'll have you up early complaining about having to help." Eliza recognized the dismissal but wasn't offended. Some truths needed time to settle, like dust after a windstorm. "Good night, Cole." "Good night, Eliza." Her name on his lips felt like a promise, though of what, she couldn't say. Inside, she checked on Emma, who was reading by candlelight as usual. The girl looked up with a mischievous smile. "You two were talking a long time." "Eavesdropping is rude, Emma." "I wasn't eavesdropping. I was just listening accidentally." She marked her page carefully. "He likes you, you know, Emma. He does. He looks at you the way Papa used to look at Mama, when he thought no one was watching." Her expression grew wistful. "I miss them." Eliza sat on the bed, smoothing the girl's hair. "Tell me about them." As Emma talked about her parents, her father's laugh, her mother's singing, the way they'd dance in the kitchen, sometimes Eliza felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about Emma, about Cole, about building something worth protecting in this harsh, beautiful land. Later, in her own bed, she thought about Buchanan's threats, about the challenges ahead, but stronger than the fear was determination. She'd found something here, a purpose, a place, perhaps even the beginnings of love. She'd be damned if she'd let anyone take it away. The wind picked up outside, rattling the windows, somewhere in the distance. Coyotes called to each other across the darkness, but inside the thick adobe walls, Eliza Mayfield felt safe, not just protected, but valued, not just surviving, but beginning to live. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but tonight, she was home. The November wind carried an edge of winter as Eliza made her way to the barn, medical supplies tucked under her arm. 3 days had passed since Cole's run-in with rustlers near the eastern boundary, 3 days since he'd come home with a gash along his ribs that he'd tried to hide beneath his coat. She'd noticed, of course, the way he'd favored his left side dismounting, the slight grimace when Emma hugged him too enthusiastically. But he'd waved off her concern with typical stubbornness, insisting it was just a scratch. It wasn't until she'd found the blood-stained shirt hidden in the barn that she'd confronted him. Now, in the dim afternoon light filtering through the barn slats, she found him trying to rewrap the wound himself, cursing under his breath as the bandage slipped. "Stubborn man," she muttered, setting down her supplies. "Here, let me—" "I can manage." "Hush." She batted his hands away, kneeling beside the hay bale where he sat. "This is the 3rd time I've had to redress this because you won't rest properly." "Ranch doesn't run itself," he grumbled, but he submitted to her ministrations. Eliza unwound the soiled bandage carefully, trying not to react to the angry red slash across his ribs. The wound was healing, but slowly, aggravated by his refusal to take things easy. "You're lucky this didn't go deeper," she said, cleaning the wound with gentle efficiency. "An inch more and—" "But it didn't." His voice was soft. "I'm fine, Eliza." You're not fine. You're hurt and pretending otherwise, which makes you foolish, not strong. She felt rather than saw his smile. Yes, ma'am. The familiar teasing in his voice made her look up, and that was a mistake. He was watching her with an expression she'd been seeing more often lately, something warm and wondering that made her stomach flutter. Hold still, she said, focusing on applying the fresh bandage. But her awareness of him had sharpened the warmth radiating from his skin, the way his breathing changed when her fingers brushed his ribs, the fact that they were alone in the quiet barn. Almost done, she murmured, securing the bandage. There, try to keep it clean this time. She started to pull away, but his hand caught hers. Eliza. Cole, we shouldn't. I know. But he didn't let go. His thumb traced across her knuckles, rough and gentle at once. That's what I keep telling myself. Every day. Every time I see you with Emma. Every time you smile. Every time you stand up to whatever the world throws at you. Her heart was racing now. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm tired of pretending. He tugged gently, bringing her closer. Tired of acting like you're just the governess, like I don't think about you every waking moment. Cole. That day in town, when you said you weren't pretty, weren't worth anything, it took everything I had not to shake sense into you right there. His other hand came up to cup her cheek. You want to know what I see when I look at you? She couldn't speak, could barely breathe. I see strength that puts most men to shame. Kindness that hasn't been beaten out of you despite every reason it should have been. Beauty that goes so deep it makes my chest ache. His voice dropped to a whisper. I see my future, if you'll have me. The tears came then, hot and sudden. I'm not pretty like other women. I'm plain, He pulled her against him, mindful of his injury, arms wrapping around her as she buried her face in his shoulder. You're mine, he said fiercely. And you're perfect. Every freckle, every laugh line, every stubborn tilt of your chin when you're ready to fight. Beautiful in ways that matter, ways that last. She pulled back to look at him through her tears. You really think that? I know it. He wiped her cheeks with gentle fingers. The question is whether you can believe it, whether you can see yourself the way I see you. I'm trying, she whispered. When I'm with you, with Emma, I feel valuable, wanted. You are God, Eliza, you are. He rested his forehead against hers. These past months, you've brought life back to this place. Emma smiles like she used to. The house feels like a home again. And I remember what it's like to hope for something beyond survival. I love her, Eliza said softly. Emma, she's become like a daughter to me, or a sister, I'm not sure which. She loves you too. Told me the other day she wants to grow up to be just like you. Heaven help her then. Eliza. His voice carried gentle reproof. There it is again, that dismissal of yourself. Why is it so hard for you to believe you're worth loving? She was quiet for a long moment, searching for words to explain years of being overlooked, dismissed, told she was too plain, too poor, too insignificant to matter. When you hear something often enough, she finally said, it becomes your truth. Every mirror confirms it. Every rejection reinforces it. After my parents died, I became invisible. Just another mouth to feed. Another problem to solve. The families that took me in made sure I knew I was charity, not choice. And so you believe them. What else could I do when the whole world agrees on something? Fighting it seems foolish. Cole pulled back enough to meet her eyes. Then let me be foolish. Let me fight that lie every day until you believe me instead of them. His hands framed her face. You are not plain. You are not worthless. You are not unwanted. You are beautiful, valuable, essential. My forever beauty, Eliza Mayfield. The words broke something in her, some last wall she'd built around her heart. She leaned forward, crossing the careful distance they'd maintained for months, and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, as if they were both afraid the moment might shatter. Then Cole made a sound low in his throat and deepened it, one hand tangling in her hair while the other pressed against her back, holding her close. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Eliza felt transformed. Not into someone beautiful she was beginning to understand that had always been Cole's truth, not hers to claim yet, but into someone brave enough to accept being loved. "I should go," she said, making no move to leave his arms. "Emma will wonder where I am. She's at the Hendersons for her piano lesson. Won't be back for an hour." "Oh." She felt heat rise in her cheeks. "Still, we should. That is, I should." "Yeah, but he didn't let go either. Eliza, I want to do this right. Court you properly. Make sure everyone knows my intentions are honorable." After that kiss, I'm not sure honorable is the word I'd use. He laughed, wincing as it pulled at his injury. "Fair point, but you know what I mean. You deserve better than sneaking around, giving more fuel to gossips like Buchanan." "I don't care what they say." "I do. I care about your reputation, your future. If something happened to me..." "Don't..." She pressed her fingers to his lips. "Don't borrow trouble. We have enough real problems without imagining more." He kissed her fingertips before gently removing them. "One of those real problems is that I'm your employer. There's a power imbalance. Cole Jackson, if you try to fire me to solve your conscience, I'll shoot you myself. Emma needs me. This ranch needs me." She took a breath. "You need me." "I do," he admitted. "More than I've needed anyone since..." He trailed off, and she knew he was thinking of his parents, of the losses that had shaped him. "But that's exactly why we need to be careful. I won't have anyone saying I took advantage, that you had no choice." "Then give me choices," she said simply. "Ask me to stay, not as your employee, but as whatever we're becoming. Ask me to help raise Emma, not for wages, but for love. Ask me to build a life here, not because I have nowhere else to go, but because there's nowhere else I'd rather be. Is that what you want?" "It's what I've wanted since the day Emma dragged me into the kitchen and announced she liked me. Since you stood up to Garrett and his mockery. Since I realized this place had become home without my noticing." She touched the bandage she'd just secured. "I want to be here, Cole, with you, with Emma, fighting whatever comes." He caught her hand, pressing it flat against his chest where she could feel his heartbeat, strong and steady. "Then stay, not as the governess, not as the housekeeper. Stay as the woman I love, the woman I want to marry, when you're ready, the woman who's already made us a family." "You love me?" The words came out wondering, disbelieving. "Have for weeks now, maybe since that first day. If I'm honest, just took me a while to admit it to myself." He smiled wryly. "I'm out of practice with feelings that don't involve worry or work." "I love you too." The words felt strange on her tongue, precious and terrifying. I never expected." "Neither did I. Figured I'd spend my days raising Emma, working the land, keeping my heart locked up safe. Then you showed up and picked all my locks without even trying." She laughed, watery but real. "Terrible security system you have." "The worst." He grew serious again. "But Eliza, loving each other doesn't make the dangers go away. Buchanan's still out there. The ranch is still struggling. Emma still needs stability, and people will talk." Let them talk." She stood, pulling him up with her despite his protest about his ribs. "We'll face Buchanan together. We'll save the ranch together. We'll raise Emma together. And as for the gossips," she shrugged, "they'll talk anyway. At least now they'll have something true to discuss." "When did you become so wise?" "Somewhere between learning to shoot and learning to love." She stepped back, aware that if she stayed in his arms much longer, wisdom would lose to want. Now, you need to rest that wound, and I need to start supper before Emma comes home demanding to know why there's no food. Yes, ma'am. But he caught her hand as she turned to go. Eliza, this means you're staying for good. She squeezed his fingers. Where else would I go? This is home. Your home, both of you. As she walked back to the house, basket swinging at her side. Eliza marveled at the turn her life had taken. 6 months ago, she'd been sleeping in barns, begging for work, believing herself worthless. Now she had a home, a family, a future. The transformation hadn't happened overnight. It had come in small moments, Emma's trust, Cole's protection, her own growing confidence. Each day had built on the last until she'd looked up and realized she wasn't the same woman who'd walked into Garrett's store. She was still plain by conventional standards. Her hair was still unruly, her freckles still pronounced, her figure still more sturdy than delicate. But Cole's eyes when he looked at her, Emma's delight in her presence, her own sense of purpose and belonging, these had become her new mirrors. In the kitchen, she set about preparing the evening meal, humming under her breath. Through the window, she could see Cole moving slowly toward the corral, stubborn man that he was. But there was something different in his posture now. Something lighter. They had challenges ahead: Buchanan's threats, the ranch's finances, the complexities of building a life together. But for the first time in her memory, Eliza faced the future without fear. She was loved. She was valued. She was home. And she was beautiful, not in the way society measured such things, but in the ways that mattered, in courage and kindness, in loyalty and love, in the fierce determination to protect what was hers. Cole had called her his forever beauty. Forever was a long time, full of unknowns and obstacles, but standing in the kitchen of the house that had become home, preparing a meal for the family she'd chosen and who had chosen her, Eliza thought forever might just be long enough. The smell hit them first, acrid smoke carrying on the December wind, thick with the scent of burning wood and hay. Eliza bolted upright in bed, her heart already racing before her mind fully registered what was happening. Fire! Cole's voice boomed through the house. Emma, Eliza, get out! She grabbed her shawl and ran barefoot into the hallway, nearly colliding with Emma, who stood frozen in her nightgown, eyes wide with terror. It's all right, sweetheart. Eliza pulled the girl against her, feeling her trembling. We need to get outside. Can you be brave for me? Emma nodded, clutching Eliza's hand as they rushed through the house, through the windows. Orange light danced wickedly. The barn was ablaze, flames already licking at the roof. Cole met them at the door, his face grim. Stay back by the well. Don't come near the barn. He pressed his rifle into Eliza's hands. Anyone comes who isn't me, you use this. The horses, Eliza started. I'm going. He was already moving. Keep Emma safe. Cole, no, but he was gone, running toward the inferno. Eliza pulled Emma to the well, positioning themselves where she could watch both the barn and the approaches to the house. Her hands shook as she checked the rifle's load, Cole's shooting lessons flooding back. Why would someone burn our barn? Emma's voice was small, younger than her years, because Reeves Buchanan was a man who kept his promises. Eliza thought but didn't say. I don't know, sweetheart, but we're safe. That's what matters. A horse screamed inside the barn, the sound cutting through the night like a blade. Emma sobbed, burying her face in Eliza's shoulder. That's Buttercup. She's scared. Cole will get her out. Please, God, let him get them all out. Shapes moved in the smoke. Cole had gotten the barn doors open and was driving the panicked horses out. One by one, they burst free, fleeing into the darkness. But the fire was spreading faster now, fed by the dry winter air and months of stored hay. There's someone out there, Emma whispered, pointing toward the eastern ridge. Eliza's blood ran cold. Silhouetted against the sky were 3 riders, watching, just watching. She raised the rifle, sighting down the barrel as Cole had taught her, but they were too far for an accurate shot, and they knew it. Cole emerged from the barn, coughing, soot-streaked, driving the last horse before him. He saw the riders too, his whole body tensing, but there was nothing to be done. By the time he could get his own rifle, they'd be gone. "Cowards!" Emma spat with surprising venom. "Burning our barn in the night like sneak thieves." The riders wheeled their horses and disappeared over the ridge. Their message delivered. The barn continued to burn, throwing wild shadows across the yard. There was no saving it, no water source large enough, no help coming from town. They could only watch as months of hay, equipment, and part of their livelihood turned to ash. Cole jogged over to them, still coughing. "Are you hurt, either of you?" "We're fine." Eliza ran her hands over him, checking for burns. "You fool, man, running into a burning building." "Had to save what I could." He pulled both of them against him, holding tight. "Lost half the hay, but the horses are safe. Most of the tack was in the small shed." They stood together, watching the barn collapse in on itself with a tremendous crash that sent sparks spiraling into the night sky. Emma wept quietly, grieving the loss of a place that had been part of her whole life. Eliza felt her own tears start not for the building, but for what it represented. Security, progress, hope. "We'll rebuild," Cole said firmly. "Soon as the ashes cool, we'll clear it out and start again." "With what money?" The words slipped out before Eliza could stop them. Cole was quiet for a moment. "We'll find a way, always do." But Eliza heard the doubt beneath the determination. The ranch operated on thin margins in the best of times. Replacing the barn, buying new hay to see them through winter, it might be impossible. "This is my fault," she said quietly. "Buchanan's targeting you because of me, because you took me in." "No." Cole's voice was sharp. "This is Buchanan's doing, no one else's. He'd have found another excuse if not you. The water rights, the land boundaries, anything. But..." "No buts." He turned her to face him, his eyes fierce in the firelight. "You are not to blame for evil men doing evil things. Understand?" She nodded, though guilt still gnawed at her. "What do we do now?" "Now we get through the night. Tomorrow we take stock, make plans." He looked down at Emma, who had stopped crying but still clung to them both. "Right now, we need to get our girl inside where it's warm." They spent the rest of the night in the main room, no one willing to separate. Cole cleaned his rifle and loaded it with fresh ammunition. Eliza made coffee and tried to salvage what she could see of their immediate future. Emma curled between them on the old sofa, finally falling asleep as dawn broke. "She was so brave," Eliza whispered, stroking the girl's hair. "Didn't panic, did exactly as told. Like someone else I could mention." Cole's attempt at lightness fell flat. They both knew how bad this was. "How much feed did we lose?" "More than half our winter store. We'll need to buy more, or sell off some of the herd." "Selling means less income come spring." "I know." They sat in silence, the weight of their situation pressing down. Outside, the destroyed barn still smoldered, a black scar on the landscape. "I could go to town," Eliza said carefully. "Find work. Mrs. Chen mentioned she needed help at the boarding house. The money could..." "Absolutely not." Cole's response was immediate. "You think I'd send you back to town after this, where Buchanan's men could get at you easier? Then what do we do?" He rubbed his face, exhaustion showing in every line. "I've got some money saved. Not much, but enough for essential supplies. We'll make the hay stretch by supplementing with grain. It'll be tight, but we've survived worse." "Have we?" She couldn't keep the fear from her voice. "Cole, he burned our barn. What's next? The house. What if Emma had been playing in there? What if..." "Hey." He reached over the sleeping child to take her hand. "We can't live on what ifs. Yes, it's bad. Yes, it'll get worse before it gets better. But we're together. We're safe. The rest is just problems to solve. You make it sound so simple. Because the alternative is giving up. And that's not happening. His jaws set in the stubborn line she'd come to know well. Buchanan wants us to run. Wants us scared and scattered. I'll be damned if I give him the satisfaction. As the sun rose higher, the reality of their loss became clearer. The barn was completely destroyed, along with the hay store, various tools, and the old wagon they'd been repairing. The horses milled nervously in the corral, traumatized but uninjured. Neighbors began arriving by mid-morning, drawn by the smoke column that was visible for miles. The Hendersons brought breakfast and sympathy. The Pembertons offered the loan of tools. Even crusty old Samuel Martinez rode over with his sons, offering to help clear the debris. "Buchanan's doing?" Henderson asked Cole quietly while the women organized food in the kitchen. "Can't prove it." "Don't need proof to know a snake's been in your garden." Henderson spat tobacco juice with precision. "Man's been squeezing folks all year. The Cassidy place, the Youngs, now you." "Cassidy sold out," Cole pointed out. "After his well got poisoned. Young left after his prize bull turned up shot." Henderson's weathered face was grim. "Buchanan doesn't always burn barns. Sometimes he just makes life not worth living." "I'm not leaving." "Didn't figure you were just saying. Might be time some of us started watching each other's backs more careful-like." It was the closest thing to an alliance offer Cole was likely to get. He nodded slowly. "Appreciate that. Jim?" In the kitchen, Eliza found herself surrounded by the ranch wives, their initial suspicion of her seemingly forgotten in the face of crisis. Mrs. Henderson pressed a jar of preserves into her hands while Mrs. Pemberton discussed the best way to stretch limited feed through winter. "You'll need to watch for colic," Mrs. Martinez advised. "Horses get scared like that. They don't eat right. Their digestion goes all wrong. I'll send my youngest over with some of my special mash recipe." Emma, resilient as only children can be, had recovered enough to help serve coffee and accept hugs from the various women. But Eliza noticed how she stayed close, never straying far from sight. "How are you really, Mrs.?" Henderson asked quietly when they had a moment alone. "This can't be easy, being new to all this." Eliza considered lying, maintaining the brave front. But these women had come to help without being asked, and that deserved honesty. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "Not for myself, but for them, for Emma especially. What kind of man targets a child's home? The kind that needs stopping." "Mrs. Henderson said firmly. "Question is, how far are you willing to go to protect what's yours?" "As far as necessary." The older woman studied her with approval. "Good. You'll need that spine. Cole's a good man, but he's got a blind spot when it comes to fighting dirty. Comes from being raised too honorable." "And you think I should fight dirty?" "I think sometimes you fight fire with fire." "Mrs." Henderson glanced around, then leaned closer. "My Jim saw Buchanan's segundo in town yesterday, buying lamp oil. Lot of lamp oil for a man who uses gaslighting in his big house." The implication was clear. They'd known this was coming and done nothing to warn them. Anger flared hot in Eliza's chest. "Easy, girl," Mrs. Henderson cautioned. "Revenge is a dish best served cold, my mother used to say, and smart. You go after Buchanan half-cocked, you'll just get yourselves killed." "Then what do you suggest?" "I suggest you think like a woman, not a man. We don't meet force with force, we meet it with cunning. Buchanan's got weaknesses. Every man does. Find them. Use them." Before Eliza could respond, Cole appeared in the doorway. "Ladies, I hate to interrupt, but I need to speak with Eliza." The women dispersed with knowing looks, leaving them alone in the kitchen. Cole looked exhausted, soot still darkening the creases around his eyes despite his attempts to wash. Martinez brought news from town. he said quietly. Buchanan's put word out that he's willing to buy our land for twice what it's worth. Cash offer. Twice, Cole. That's enough to start over somewhere else. Somewhere safe. Is that what you want to run? She thought about it honestly. The safety it would buy. The fresh start. Then she thought about Emma's roots here. Cole's parents buried in the small cemetery on the hill. The life they'd begun building together. No, she said firmly. This is our home. But I had to ask. Relief flickered in his eyes. Good, because I already told Martinez to relay our answer. The Double J doesn't run. Then we'd better figure out how to fight smarter than we have been. Agreed. Which is why I'm riding to Fort Buchanan tomorrow. Still have some friends from my cavalry days. Maybe it's time to cash in some favors. You think the army will help? Not officially, but information has a way of traveling. And Buchanan's not the only one with connections. Eliza nodded, her mind already working. Mrs. Henderson was right, they needed to think differently, fight differently. Buchanan had wealth and men, but that didn't make him invincible. I'll need you to stay close to the house while I'm gone. Cole continued, keep Emma inside unless absolutely necessary. And keep the rifle handy. Of course. He stepped closer, his hand coming up to cup her cheek. We'll get through this. Eliza, I promise. She leaned into his touch, drawing strength from it. I know. We're too stubborn to do anything else. That earned her a small smile. There's my fighter. For a minute there. I thought this might have scared you off. It'll take more than a burned barn to get rid of me. Cole Jackson, you're stuck with me now. Good. He kissed her forehead, gentle and brief. Because I don't know how I'd do this without you anymore. As the neighbors began to leave, offering final condolences and promises of help, Eliza stood in the doorway, watching the sun set over the destroyed barn. The fear was still there, cold and sharp in her belly, but stronger than fear was determination. Buchanan had made a mistake. He'd threatened her family, her home, her future. He thought them weak, vulnerable, easily broken. He was about to learn otherwise. Tomorrow, Cole would seek allies among his old military contacts, and Eliza. She'd begin her own campaign, using the weapons available to her intelligence, planning, and the kind of patient cunning that men like Buchanan never expected from a woman they'd dismissed as plain and worthless. The war for the Double J had begun, and Eliza Mayfield intended to win. The ransom note arrived on a cold January morning, carried by a rider who didn't wait for a response. Eliza's hands shook as she read the crude handwriting. Got your woman. Want her back whole, bring the water rights deed to Devil's Canyon. Midnight. Come alone. R.B. The paper fluttered to the floor as the truth hit her. They'd taken Emma. Not her. The writer had said your woman, but Emma was the one missing, having gone to gather eggs an hour ago and never returned. No. The word came out as a whisper, then stronger. No. She ran to the chicken coop, hoping against hope she'd find Emma there, distracted by some injured bird or interesting discovery. Instead, she found scattered eggs and signs of struggle, Emma's favorite hair ribbon caught on a fence post, drag marks in the dirt. Think. Cole had left before dawn to check the eastern boundary. Wouldn't be back until afternoon. By then it might be too late. Every instinct screamed at her to saddle a horse and chase after them, but she forced herself to stop. Breathe. Plan. Mrs. Henderson's words echoed, think like a woman, not a man. Buchanan expected Cole to come, alone and desperate, straight into an ambush. He'd underestimated them from the beginning, seeing only what he expected, a struggling rancher and a plain, helpless woman. Time to use that blindness against him. Eliza saddled Dusty, Cole's steadiest mare, and packed quickly but carefully. Rope, her pistol, extra ammunition, a knife, matches, and a small mirror. She dressed in Cole's old work clothes, tucking her hair under a battered hat. From a distance, In the dark, she might pass for him. She left a note for Cole, knowing he'd be furious, but hoping he'd understand. "Gone to get our girl, trust me." Devil's Canyon lay 5 miles north, a twisted maze of arroyos and box canyons that had earned its name from the number of cattle and men who died in its depths. Eliza had never been there, but Emma had described it during one of their geography lessons, complete with hand-drawn maps. The sun was high when she reached the canyon's entrance, rather than ride straight in. She climbed the ridge on foot, moving carefully through the scattered rocks and brush. Her dress would have made this impossible, but in Cole's clothes, she could navigate the rough terrain. From above, she spotted them 3 men lounging near a small fire in a side canyon. Passing a bottle between them, Emma sat against a rock wall, hands tied, but apparently unharmed. She wasn't crying, wasn't begging. Good girl, Eliza thought fiercely. Stay strong a little longer. Buchanan himself wasn't visible, likely waiting at the designated meeting spot. These were just guards, left to watch the bait, overconfident and half-drunk, from the looks of them. Eliza studied the layout, forcing herself to think tactically as Cole had taught her. The guards had positioned themselves poorly, all facing the main approach. The canyon walls offered cover if she could get down without dislodging rocks. And Emma, smart girl that she was, had positioned herself as far from her captors as her bonds allowed. Moving with painstaking care, Eliza began her descent. Every step had to be tested, every handhold checked. Sweat trickled down her back despite the winter chill. One kicked pebble, one careless moment, and it would all be over. She made it to the canyon floor 50 yards from the guards, hidden behind a cluster of boulders. Now, for the dangerous part. She pulled out the mirror and caught the sun, flashing it toward Emma. Once, twice, 3 times. The girl's head came up slightly. She'd seen. Eliza flashed again. "Be ready." "You see something?" one of the guards asked, noticing Emma's movement. "Just a lizard," Emma said calmly. "Big one. Reminded me of Mr. Garrett from town." The men laughed, passing the bottle again. "Kid's got spine," one commented. "Too bad it won't help her daddy none." Eliza gritted her teeth and moved closer, using their laughter as cover. 30 yards, 20, close enough to hear the fire crackle, to smell their unwashed bodies. Her hand found a good-sized rock. The throw had to be perfect. Too close and they'd spot her. Too far and it wouldn't work. She aimed for a spot behind them and to the left, where the canyon narrowed. The rock clattered loudly in the silence, echoing off the walls. All 3 men spun toward the sound, hands reaching for weapons. What was... Eliza was already moving. 3 quick steps, and she had her gun pressed to the nearest guard's head. "Drop them! Now!" The men froze, caught completely off guard. The one under her gun started to turn. "Don't!" She cocked the hammer. The click loud in the silence. "I've shot rabbits smaller than your head at twice this distance. Want to test me?" "You ain't Jackson," one of them said, squinting at her. "No, I'm worse." She kept her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I'm the woman whose daughter you took. Drop your guns, or I drop you." They must have heard something in her voice, the edge of a mother's fury. Perhaps because they complied. Weapons thudding to the dirt. "Emma, sweetheart, can you walk?" "Yes, ma'am." The girl's voice was steady, proud. "They didn't hurt me none." "Good girl. Stay where you are just another moment." Eliza addressed the guards again. "On your bellies. Hands behind your heads. Buchanan'll kill you for this," one muttered as he lowered himself down. "He's welcome to try." She gathered their weapons quickly, stuffing 2 revolvers in her belt and kicking the rifle away. Then she cut Emma free with shaking hands, pulling the girl against her briefly. "I knew you'd come," Emma whispered. "I told them they were stupid, messing with you." "Brave girl. Now help me tie these fools up." They worked quickly, using the men's own ropes to bind them thoroughly. Eliza had learned knots from her father, a skill she'd never imagined would prove so vital. "You won't get away with this," the largest guard snarled. "Buchanan's got 20 men. He'll hunt you down like dogs." "With what?" Eliza smiled coldly. "His burned barn, his poisoned well. Oh, didn't you know, while you boys were playing kidnapper, some concerned citizens paid a visit to the Buchanan spread? Funny how fire spreads when you're not watching." It was a lie, but she saw uncertainty flicker in their eyes. Let them wonder. Let Buchanan wonder. She took Emma's hand. "Can you ride behind me?" "I can ride anywhere," Emma said fiercely. "Are we going to shoot our way out?" "Only if we have to. I prefer being clever to being dead." They made it to Dusty without incident, though Eliza kept expecting shots from the ridge. Either Buchanan was still waiting at the meeting spot, or he'd expected complete success from his men. His overconfidence would cost him. "Hold tight," she told Emma as they mounted. "We're taking the long way home." "Why?" "Because that's not what they'll expect." Instead of heading south toward the ranch, she turned east, toward the Badlands Cole had shown her months ago. It would add hours to their journey, but it would also make them nearly impossible to track. As they rode, Emma pressed against her back, small arms wrapped tight around her waist. "Eliza, I was scared." "I know, sweetheart, so was I." "But you came anyway." "Always. You're my girl, Emma Jackson. Mine and Cole's. Nobody takes what's ours." They rode in silence for a while, the desert spreading endless around them. Then Emma asked, "What's going to happen now with Mr. Buchanan?" Eliza considered her words carefully. "I think Mr. Buchanan is about to learn that he's made some serious mistakes." "Good." The venom in the child's voice was startling. "I hope he loses everything. Emma, he burned our barn. He took me from my home. He made you cry that night when you thought I was sleeping." Emma's arms tightened. "I hate him." Hate's a heavy thing to carry. Eliza said gently, "It weighs you down, makes you like the people you hate. Better to be smart, better to win." "Are we going to win?" Eliza thought about Cole, who even now was probably discovering her note and saddling up to follow, about the neighbors who'd rallied after the fire, about her own transformation from frightened runaway to a woman who just outmaneuvered 3 armed men. "Yes," she said firmly, "we're going to win." They reached a sheltered canyon as the sun began to sink. Eliza called a halt, knowing they needed rest and water. As Emma stretched cramped limbs, Eliza kept watch, every sense alert for pursuit. "Tell me what happened," she said quietly. "All of it." Emma's story was simple enough. 3 men had appeared while she was collecting eggs. She'd tried to run, but they'd caught her easily. They'd tied her up, thrown her over a saddle, and ridden hard to Devil's Canyon. They kept saying Daddy would come, that he'd have to give up the water rights. They seemed real sure of themselves. Emma's face darkened. One of them said after Daddy was dealt with, they'd have fun with you. Ice filled Eliza's veins. "Did they say anything else? Anything about their plans?" The fat one complained about having to miss the main show. Said Buchanan had 20 men ready to ambush Daddy at midnight. Emma looked up at her with worried eyes. "We have to warn him." "We will." Eliza's mind raced. 20 men. Even if half that number was true, Cole wouldn't stand a chance riding in alone. "How far are we from the Henderson place?" "Maybe 3 miles, but that's the wrong direction." "No, it's exactly right." Eliza helped Emma back onto Dusty. "Hold on, sweetheart. We're about to break some speed records." They thundered into the Henderson ranch as full dark fell. Jim Henderson met them with a shotgun that lowered quickly when he recognized them. Mrs. Mayfield Emma, what in blazes? "No time." Eliza slid from the saddle, legs nearly buckling. "Buchanan kidnapped Emma, demanded Cole meet him at Devil's Canyon with the water rights. It's an ambush, 20 men or more. Henderson's face went grim. When? Midnight. Cole doesn't know he was checking fence lines. He's probably riding into a trap right now. Not if we can help it. Henderson turned to his house. Boys, saddle up, we got work to do. Within minutes, the yard filled with armed men, Henderson's 3 sons, 2 hands, and Henderson himself. Word spread somehow. That mysterious ranch telegraph, and soon the Pemberton boys arrived. Then Martinez with his cousins. This is our fight too, Martinez said simply when Eliza tried to thank him. Buchanan squeezed all of us. Time we squeezed back. I need to go with you, Eliza said. No. Henderson's tone brooked no argument. You've done your part. Done it well. Emma needs you here, safe. Let us handle the rest. She wanted to argue, but saw the wisdom. She'd saved Emma through cunning. These men would save Cole through force. As the riders prepared to leave, Mrs. Henderson appeared with a rifle. You remember what I taught you? She asked Eliza quietly. Think like a woman, not a man. Good girl, you did us proud today. Now let's hope our men can do the same. The rescue party thundered off into the night, leaving Eliza and Emma in the warm kitchen with Mrs. Henderson. They waited, drinking coffee and trying not to think about what might be happening at Devil's Canyon. Tell me again how you tricked them, Mrs. Henderson said, and Eliza realized she was trying to distract Emma. She told the story, Emma adding details, and slowly the girl's tension eased. But Eliza's grew with each passing minute. What if they were too late? What if Cole had already walked into the trap? Near midnight, hoofbeats sounded in the yard. Eliza ran to the door, Emma at her heels, to find Cole swinging down from his lathered horse. He was dusty, exhausted, but whole. Eliza! He crossed the yard in 3 strides and pulled her against him. You impossible, brave, foolish woman. Is it over? She asked against his chest. It's over. Buchanan's men scattered when they saw they were outnumbered. Buchanan himself tried to run. His voice hardened. Tried. She pulled back to look at him. Is he alive? For now. The marshal has him. Turns out kidnapping children crosses lines even crooked lawmen won't ignore. He cupped her face in his hands. You saved her. You saved us all. We saved each other, she corrected, then gasped as Emma barreled into them both. Don't ever leave me behind again, the girl ordered fiercely. We're a family. Families stick together. Yes, ma'am, Cole said solemnly, gathering them both close. No more splitting up, promise. Later, after they'd returned home and Emma was safely asleep, Eliza found herself once again on the porch with Cole, but this time she sat in his lap, his arms around her, both of them wrapped in a blanket against the cold. I've never been so terrified, he admitted quietly. When I found your note, I thought I'd lost you both. You trained me well. Shoot straight, think smart, don't panic. She traced the worry lines on his face. I couldn't wait. Cole couldn't risk Emma. I know, and I'm proud of you. Proud and terrified, and amazed. He pressed his lips to her temple. You're not the same woman who walked into Garrett's store. No, she agreed. That woman was broken. This one's been forged. Beautiful, he murmured, my forever beauty, inside and out. She turned to kiss him properly, pouring all her relief and love into it. When they broke apart, she said, no more waiting. I want to be your wife, Cole, properly, legally, so everyone knows we belong to each other. Tomorrow too soon, he asked with a smile. Not soon enough. They stayed there as the night deepened around them, planning a future that had almost been stolen. The barn would be rebuilt. The ranch would prosper. Emma would grow up safe and loved. And Eliza, she'd found her worth not in mirrors or others' opinions, but in her own courage, her own choices, her own love. She was beautiful not because Cole said so, though his belief had helped her see it, but because she'd claimed it for herself. Forever beauty, he'd called her, forever strong, forever brave, forever loved, forever home. The church bells of Willow Creek had never sounded sweeter than on that crisp February morning. Eliza stood in Mrs. Henderson's spare bedroom, hands trembling as she smoothed the simple blue dress that would serve as her wedding gown. It wasn't white silk or imported lace, but it was clean. It fit well, and Emma had spent hours embroidering tiny flowers along the collar. "Stop fussing, Mrs." Henderson said gently, adjusting Eliza's hair one final time. "You look perfect." "I'm not nervous about how I look," Eliza admitted. "I'm nervous about everything else. What if the town won't accept us? What if you stop borrowing trouble on your wedding day, Mrs.?" Henderson turned her to face the mirror. "Look at yourself. Child, really look." Eliza met her own eyes in the glass. The woman looking back wasn't the desperate, frightened girl who'd stumbled into Garrett's store months ago. This woman stood straight, her face glowing with health and happiness, her eyes clear and confident. She wasn't conventionally pretty, would never be, but there was something else there now. Strength, purpose, love. "I see her," Eliza whispered. "Good. Now let's not keep that man of yours waiting. I swear he's worn a path in the church floor with his pacing." Emma burst through the door, resplendent in a new green dress. "He's so nervous, mister. Martinez had to practically hold him down to get his tie straight." She spun in a circle, making her skirts bell out. "Do I look grown up?" "You look perfect," Eliza said, pulling her close. "My beautiful girl." "Soon I can call you Mama for real," Emma said, her voice muffled against Eliza's dress. "Cole said I could, if you don't mind." Tears pricked Eliza's eyes. "I'd be honored." The walk to the church felt both endless and too quick. Eliza was aware of faces in windows, of people stopping to stare. Let them look, she thought. Let them see that the plain girl they'd mocked had found something more valuable than beauty. Inside the small church, what seemed like half the territory had gathered: the Hendersons, the Pembertons, the Martinez family, even some folks from neighboring towns. At the altar stood Reverend Thompson, and beside him, Eliza's breath caught. Cole had never looked more handsome, despite, or perhaps because of his obvious nerves. He wore his father's suit, altered to fit his broader frame, and his usually unruly hair had been tamed into submission. But it was the look in his eyes when he saw her that made her knees weak. Wonder, love, pride, and something else, that fierce protectiveness that had drawn her from the beginning. Samuel Martinez, serving as her escort in the absence of family, offered his arm. "Ready, Senora." "Ready?" The walk down the aisle seemed to take forever. Eliza was aware of whispers, of Garrett glowering from a back pew, of Mrs. Chen dabbing at her eyes. But mostly she was aware of Cole, of the way his face softened with each step she took toward him. "Who gives this woman to be married?" Reverend Thompson intoned. "Her community does," Martinez said firmly, and a murmur of agreement ran through the church. As Martinez placed her hand in Cole's, he whispered, "Be happy, Mia. You've earned it." The ceremony itself was simple. They'd requested traditional vows, nothing fancy. But when Cole spoke the words, "to have and to hold, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer," his voice roughened with emotion. And when it came time for Eliza to speak, she added her own truth to the ancient words, "I take you, Cole, not just as my husband, but as my partner, my protector, my home. Where you go, I go. What battles you face, I face beside you. Your family is my family, now and always." Emma, standing as witness, sniffled audibly. "The rings," Reverend Thompson prompted. Cole produced 2 simple bands, not gold, which they couldn't afford, but silver, crafted by the local blacksmith from Mexican coins. "They're not much," he murmured as he slipped hers on. "They're perfect," she whispered back, meaning it. "By the power vested in me by the territory of Arizona, I now pronounce you man and wife. You may kiss your bride." And Cole cupped her face gently, his thumbs brushing her cheeks. "My wife," he said softly, wonder in his voice. Then he kissed her, sweet and sure, while the church erupted in cheers. They signed the register as Mr. and Mrs. Cole Jackson, Emma adding her name as witness with a flourish. Then they were swept out into the sunshine, where tables had been set up for a community celebration. "I can't believe all this," Eliza said, taking in the decorations, the food, the smiling faces. "Folks remember who stood up to Buchanan," Henderson said, passing by with a plate piled high. "Who protected a child and faced down armed men. You're one of us now, Mrs. Jackson, for better or worse." The celebration was unlike anything Eliza had experienced. Stories were shared, some embarrassing Cole considerably. Children ran between the tables while their parents gossiped and laughed. Even the weather cooperated, providing a mild day despite the season. "Dance with me," Cole said as someone started fiddle music. "Here now." "Why not? It's our wedding. If we can't dance at our own wedding, when can we?" He led her into a simple waltz, made complicated by the uneven ground and their audience. But Eliza found she didn't care. She was dancing with her husband in the middle of a dusty street, surrounded by people who'd accepted her. And it was perfect. "What are you thinking?" Cole asked, spinning her carefully. "That 6 months ago, I thought my life was over, that I'd never be anything more than the plain orphan girl nobody wanted. And now I'm Eliza Jackson, wife, mother, crackshot, and defender of the homestead." She smiled up at him. "Turns out I was never plain at all. I just needed the right eyes to see me. My forever beauty," he said softly, for her ears alone. Mama, Papa, Emma came running, using the new titles with obvious delight. "Mrs. Pemberton says it's time to cut the cake." The cake, it turned out, was a community effort, 3 layers of different flavors, each contributed by a different family. It leaned slightly to the left and the frosting was uneven. But to Eliza, it was more beautiful than any professionally made confection. As the sun began to sink, painting the desert in familiar golds and roses, the party showed no signs of ending. But Cole caught Eliza's eye and tilted his head toward their wagon, now decorated with ribbons and wildflowers. Ready to go home, Mrs. Jackson. Home, their family. "Ready!" The ride back to the ranch was quiet. Emma dozed between them, exhausted from the day's excitement. As they created a rise, the ranch spread out before them in the dying light. The house, the new barn frame already rising, the land that had become theirs through sweat and struggle. "No regrets?" Cole asked quietly. "How could I regret the best day of my life? Even though you could have had more, a fancy wedding, a honeymoon trip, a husband who could give you silk dresses and jewelry." Eliza laughed. "Cole Jackson, are you fishing for compliments on our wedding day?" "Maybe a little." She leaned against his shoulder, careful not to wake Emma. "I don't want silk dresses. I want work clothes that let me ride and shoot. I don't need jewelry. I need a partner who sees my worth. And as for a honeymoon..." She gestured at the vast desert around them. "Where could be more beautiful than home?" They pulled up to the house as full dark fell. Cole carried the sleeping Emma inside while Eliza lit the lamps. The house felt different somehow, not physically, but in its essence. This morning she'd been the hired help. Tonight she was the lady of the house. Such as it was. "Put her to bed," she told Cole softly. "I'll make us some coffee." But when he returned, he found her standing at the window, looking out at the stars. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her head. "What do you see out there?" The future, she said. Emma growing up strong and smart. The ranch prospering. Maybe more children, if we're blessed. I'd like that. He turned her in his arms. But right now, I'd like to focus on the present, on the fact that I can finally call you my wife, that I can do this whenever I want. He kissed her slowly, thoroughly, that I don't have to say goodnight at your bedroom door anymore. Heat rose in her cheeks, but she met his gaze steadily. Then don't! He scooped her up despite her laughing protests about propriety and her weight. You weigh nothing, and propriety is for people who aren't married. Their wedding night was tender and patient, full of whispered endearments and gentle discoveries. And when Eliza lay in her husband's arms afterward, listening to his heartbeat, she marveled at the journey that had brought her here. "What are you thinking?" Cole asked, his fingers combing through her unbound hair. "About beauty," she said honestly. "How I spent so long believing I didn't have any, how wrong I was. You were beautiful the day I met you, scared and defensive and ready to fight the world, but beautiful." "No." She propped herself up on an elbow to look at him. "I was broken that day. Beauty isn't something you have, Cole. It's something you become. Every choice to be brave instead of bitter. Every moment of choosing love over fear, that's what makes a person beautiful." "When did you get so wise?" "Somewhere between learning to shoot and learning to trust." She traced the scar along his jaw. "You helped me become who I was meant to be, not by trying to change me, but by seeing me. You did the same for me," he admitted. "After my parents died, after Sarah, I thought I was done with feeling anything beyond duty. Then you showed up and picked all my locks. Sarah, the girl he'd loved and lost to frontier violence." He rarely spoke of her, but Eliza understood. The heart could hold many loves, each unique, each precious. "I'm glad," she said simply, "though your security system really was terrible." That startled a laugh out of him. "I'll work on that. Can't have strange women wandering in and stealing my heart." "Too late. This strange woman is here to stay." "Thank God for that." They talked quietly as the night deepened, making plans and sharing dreams. The ranch would need work, would always need work, but with Buchanan gone and the community's support, they had a real chance now. Cole had ideas about breeding horses, maybe adding some cattle. Eliza wanted to expand the garden, maybe sell produce in town come summer. "And Emma?" she asked. "What about her education? She's so bright. Cole, she deserves more than I can teach her." "There's a new school teacher coming to Willow Creek in the fall. Real one this time. From back east." He smiled. "Though I doubt she'll be as good as you." "She'll be better, properly trained, with real books and supplies." Eliza sighed contentedly. "I can go back to just being Emma's mother." "Never just anything," Cole said firmly. "You're Eliza Jackson, defender of the homestead, crackshot, tamer of hearts, and my forever beauty." "Forever," she agreed, sealing it with a kiss. Outside, a coyote howled at the moon, and somewhere in the distance, an owl called. The desert was alive with its usual nighttime symphony, but inside the thick adobe walls of the Double J Ranch, all was peace. Tomorrow would bring its challenges. There would be hard times ahead, droughts and storms, sickness and setbacks. The frontier didn't coddle anyone, no matter how much in love they were. But tonight, Eliza Jackson lay in her husband's arms, in her own home, with her daughter safe down the hall, and knew herself to be the richest woman in the territory, not in money or conventional beauty, but in the things that mattered: love, purpose, belonging. She'd traveled so far from that desperate girl in Garrett's store, the one who'd believed herself worthless. That girl had been transformed by fire and struggle into this woman-wife, mother, partner. Beautiful not in spite of her plainness, but because she'd learned to see beyond it. Beautiful because she'd chosen to be brave. Beautiful because she was loved and loving in return. Beautiful because she was finally, truly, home. 5 years had passed since that February wedding, and the Double J Ranch had transformed from a struggling homestead into a thriving property. The new barn stood proud and sturdy, twice the size of the one Buchanan had burned. Corrals held fine horses. The garden produced enough to sell at market. And the house had gained 2 additional rooms, necessary additions for a growing family. Eliza stood at the kitchen window, one hand resting on her swollen belly while she watched Emma, now 15 and beautiful in her own right, teaching her younger brother James how to properly hold a lasso. At 3, James had his father's stubborn streak and his mother's determination, a combination that kept everyone on their toes. "Easy, James," Emma coached patiently. "You're not trying to choke the fence post." "I do it," James declared, his small face scrunched in concentration. The sight made Eliza smile. This was what she'd dreamed of during those cold nights sleeping in barns, not the specifics, perhaps, but this feeling of belonging, of purpose, of home. "You should be resting," Cole said, coming up behind her, even after 5 years of marriage. His presence still made her heart skip. Dr. Morrison said, "Dr. Morrison hasn't carried 2 children while running a ranch." Eliza interrupted, leaning back against him. "I'm fine. Cole, the baby's not due for another month." "You said that right before James decided to arrive 3 weeks early in the middle of a thunderstorm. And everything turned out perfectly, didn't it?" He wrapped his arms around her carefully, hands coming to rest over hers on her belly. "Everything's perfect because you're too stubborn to let it be otherwise." Through the window, they watched James finally succeed in getting his tiny lasso over the post. He whooped in triumph, and Emma swept him up in a congratulatory hug. "She's going to be a wonderful mother someday," Eliza observed. "Someday, far in the future," Cole said firmly. "After she's finished her education and found a man I haven't shot for looking at her wrong." Eliza laughed. "You can't shoot all of them." "Watch me try." The sound of approaching horses drew their attention. 2 riders were coming up the road, Marshall Watson and a stranger in city clothes. "Stay inside," Cole said, immediately alert. But Eliza recognized the set of the stranger's shoulders, the way he sat his horse like someone more comfortable with carriages. "Wait, I think that's—" The riders reached the yard, and the stranger removed his hat, revealing a face Eliza hadn't seen in 6 years. Theodore Mayfield, her cousin, the one who'd inherited everything when her parents died, the one who'd made it clear she wasn't welcome to stay. "Eliza!" Theodore dismounted awkwardly. "My God, is it really you?" She stepped onto the porch, Cole a protective presence at her side. "Hello, Theodore. This is unexpected." Theodore looked older, grayer, his city prosperity showing in his expanded waistline and fine clothes. His eyes took in her obvious pregnancy, her simple but clean dress, the thriving ranch around them. And something like shame crossed his features. I've been looking for you," he said, "for 2 years now. Ever since—" He paused, seeming to struggle with the words. "Ever since Martha died." Martha, his wife, who had been the one to insist Eliza had to go, that they couldn't afford another mouth to feed despite inheriting her parents' modest estate. "I'm sorry for your loss," Eliza said, meaning it. Whatever had passed between them, death was always a sorrow. "She was ill for a long time," Theodore said. "It gave her time to think, to regret. She asked me to find you, to make things right." "There's nothing to make right," Eliza said calmly. "What's past is past." "No, you don't understand." Theodore reached into his coat, producing a leather portfolio. "Your parents' house, their savings, I sold everything after you left. I told myself it was mine by rights, but it wasn't, not morally. Martha knew it, I knew it. I've brought what I owe you, plus interest." He held out the portfolio. Cole stepped forward, taking it when Eliza didn't move. His low whistle when he opened it told her the sum was substantial. "I don't want your money, Theodore," she said quietly. "It's not my money. It's yours. It always was." Theodore's voice cracked. "I told myself you'd be fine, that a girl like you would find work or marriage easily enough. I didn't think about how alone you were, how young, when Marshall Watson told me what you'd been through, what could have happened. But it didn't." Eliza stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on her cousin's arm. "I found my way. Theodore, I found my family." Emma chose that moment to come running, James on her hip. "Mama, James got the post 3 times in a—" "Oh!" She stopped short, taking in the visitors. "Emma, this is my cousin Theodore from Missouri. Theodore, this is my daughter Emma and my son James." "Daughter?" Theodore looked confused. "But surely she's too old." "I'm adopted," Emma said proudly. "Mama chose me, which is even better than being born to someone, because it means they really want you." Theodore's eyes filled with tears. He quickly blinked away. "Yes, I can see that." James, never one for solemnity, squirmed to be put down and marched up to Theodore. "You got candy." "James," Emma scolded. "That's rude." "Actually, I do." Theodore produced a small bag of peppermints from his pocket. "If your mother permits." Eliza nodded, and James accepted the candy with a gap-toothed grin before running off to enjoy his treasure. "Will you stay for supper?" Eliza asked, surprising herself. "It's a long ride back to town." Are you certain?" "Family is always welcome at the Double J," Cole said, speaking for the first time. "Even family that took a while to find their way." Theodore stayed not just for supper, but for 3 days, helping with small tasks and listening with wonder to the story of Eliza's transformation. On his last evening, he stood with her on the porch watching the sunset paint the desert in brilliant hues. "You've built something remarkable here," he said. "Martha would have been glad to know you're happy." "I am happy," Eliza confirmed. "Happier than I ever imagined possible." "Your parents would be proud. You've become quite a formidable woman, cousin." "I've become myself," she corrected gently. "It just took me a while to figure out who that was." After Theodore left, promising to write and extending an invitation to visit Missouri someday, life settled back into its familiar rhythms. The money he'd brought went into the bank security for the children's education and the ranch's future. But the real gift had been the closure. The healing of an old wound Eliza hadn't realized still ached. 2 weeks later, as autumn touched the desert with cooler nights and golden days, Eliza woke to familiar pains. This baby, it seemed, would follow its brother's example of early arrival. "Cole," she said calmly, then less calmly when he didn't stir. "Cole." What followed was the controlled chaos of birth Cole riding for the midwife, Emma taking charge of James, neighbors arriving to help as word spread. Through it all, Eliza focused on the task at hand, drawing on the strength she'd found within herself years ago. As the sun set, painting the mountains in shades of rose and gold, a new voice joined the symphony of the Double J Ranch, tiny but strong, announcing its arrival with healthy lungs. "A daughter," the midwife announced, placing the baby in Eliza's arms. "Perfect as a peach." Cole sat on the bed's edge, one arm around Eliza, his calloused finger gently stroking the baby's cheek. "She's beautiful, just like her mother." "All babies are beautiful," Eliza said, but she was smiling, tears streaming down her face. "What will you name her?" Emma asked from the doorway, James peeking around her skirts. Eliza looked at her daughter, this new life that was part of her and Cole, part of everything they'd built together. "Hope," she said softly. "Hope, Jackson." "Hope," Cole repeated, testing the name. "For the future." "For everything." Eliza agreed. Later. As the household settled for the night, baby Hope in her cradle. James finally convinced to sleep in his own bed. Emma reading by lamplight, Eliza found herself once again on the porch with Cole. It had become their tradition, these quiet moments under the stars. "No regrets?" he asked, as he had on their wedding day. "How could I regret any of this?" She gestured to the house full of love, the land they'd claimed through sweat and determination, the life they'd built from nothing but will and trust. "You could have had an easier life if Theodore had done right from the beginning, if you'd never had to leave Missouri." "Then I'd never have found you," she interrupted. "Never have become the woman I am. Never have learned my own strength." She turned in his arms to face him. "Every hardship, every moment of doubt, every tear, they all led me here. How can I regret the road when I love the destination so much?" He kissed her then, soft and sweet, full of the mature love that had replaced their early passion, not lesser, just deeper, like a river that had carved its permanent path. "My forever beauty," he murmured against her lips. "Forever and always," she agreed. Inside, Hope began to fuss, and Eliza rose to tend to her. As she lifted her daughter, she caught sight of herself in the mirror. The woman looking back still wasn't conventionally pretty. She had lines around her eyes now, testament to laughter and desert sun. Her hair, though neatly pinned, would never be fashionably sleek. Her hands were work-roughened, capable rather than delicate. But she was beautiful. Beautiful in the way she soothed her daughter with practiced ease. Beautiful in the love that filled her eyes when she looked at her family. Beautiful in the confidence that came from knowing exactly who she was and what she was worth. The girl who had stood in Garrett's store, believing herself worthless, was gone. In her place stood Eliza Jackson, wife, mother, rancher, defender of her home, and living proof that true beauty came not from features or fashion, but from the courage to become who you were meant to be. As she settled Hope back in her cradle and returned to bed, Cole pulled her close, and she listened to the familiar sounds of home, her husband's steady breathing, the old house settling around them, the endless whisper of the desert wind. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, children to raise, a ranch to run, a life to continue building. But tonight, surrounded by love and wrapped in the certainty of belonging, Eliza Jackson knew herself to be exactly where she should be. She had been called plain, worthless, unwanted, but she had become beautiful, valuable, essential, not because someone else had declared it so, but because she had claimed it for herself, proved it through choices and chances, through love and loss and the daily decision to keep fighting for the life she wanted. The stars wheeled overhead, the same stars that had witnessed her transformation from frightened girl to confident woman. And in the morning, the sun would rise on the Double J Ranch, on the Jackson family, on a future bright with possibility. Forever beautiful, forever home, forever exactly who she was meant to be. The end. Thank you so much for listening to this Wild West love story. I'd love to hear where you're enjoying this tale from, whether you're listening during your commute, relaxing at home, or perhaps even somewhere out in the wide open spaces of the American West. Please share your thoughts in the comments below, and let me know what touched your heart in Eliza and Cole's journey. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to Wild West Night for more tales of love, courage, and adventure in the frontier. Don't forget to like this video and hit the hype button to help more listeners discover these heartwarming stories. Until next time, partners, keep riding toward your own sunset. Happy trails.